So the function of breathing. The regulation of breathing is determined by receptors in the brain, and they're monitoring the concentration of carbon dioxide along with pH, because of course the two go together, and to a lesser extent the amount of oxygen in the blood. Because there's a large reserve of oxygen in the bloodstream, such that oxygen levels must drop from a quantity of 100 millimeter of mercury pressure to about 50 millimeter of mercury pressure before the brain stimulates breathing. So oftentimes we feel that the stimulus to breathe is to bring in oxygen. That's not necessarily correct. The stimulus to breathe is to get rid of excess carbon dioxide. But carbon dioxide is not just a waste gas. We need a certain amount of oxygen, but we also need a certain amount of carbon dioxide. And if we're breathing too much, we remove too much carbon dioxide. So within the brainstem, which is the most primitive part of the brain, it begins at the base of the skull and it extends upwards between 6 and 8 centimeters. And in the lower portion of the brainstem is the medulla, and this contains the respiratory center. And it has separate inspiratory and expiratory centers. So basically for the inhalation and for the exhalation, that is dictated by separate centers. Normal carbon dioxide in the arterial blood is 40 millimeter of mercury pressure, and also of course in the air sacs in the lungs because of diffusion. And if there is an increase of carbon dioxide above this level, it stimulates the medullary inspiratory center neurons to increase their rate of firing. So in other words, the primary stimulus to breathe is carbon dioxide. So you can imagine that there's like a respiratory center is probably similar to a thermostat in a house. And the thermostat is monitoring the temperature of the room. And if the temperature goes above or below a certain level, it will either switch on or switch off heating. So you have the respiratory center in the brain, which is continuously monitoring CO2 and pH. And if CO2 goes above a certain level, the brain sends a message to breathing, to stimulate breathing, to bring carbon dioxide back to normal levels. And the increase of breathing is to remove more carbon dioxide from the blood through the lungs. So when the inspiratory center, it sends impulses down the spinal cord and through the phrenic nerve, which innervates the diaphragm, and our diaphragm is our main breathing muscle. Basically, it separates the thorax from the abdomen. So the diaphragm moves downwards, and by moving downwards, it creates a negative pressure in the thorax, and this is why we take an inhalation. So the brain, upon sensing that there's an increase of carbon dioxide, sends a message to the diaphragm moves downwards, creates a negative pressure in the thorax, and we take an inhalation. And at some point, the inspiratory center, it decreases firing, and then of course we have the exhalation. On the other hand, under normal circumstances, if we were breathing too much, and there's a decrease in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide below 40 millimeter of mercury pressure, this causes the respiratory center neurons to reduce their rate of firing to below normal. And this produces a decrease in the rate and the depth of breathing until carbon dioxide pressure rises again towards normal. But despite the intention of the respiratory center to keep carbon dioxide at normal levels, if we breathe more than what the body requires over a period of just even 24 hours, we start the road to bigger breathing volume. And this is exactly what stress would do. Like all of the factors of modern life to change breathing, all of these factors are gradually increasing breathing, so causing us to breathe more than what our body requires over a 24-hour period, so we develop the habit of breathing too much.